Hello, teacher. My name is Andres Panemarita, and in this moment I am going to talk about the introduction to linguistics. The first topic is phonemic and phonetic transcription. The other slide, please. There are two ways in which we can transcribe speech. Phonemic transcription, also sometimes known as raw transcription, involve representing speech using just unique symbols for each phoneme of the language. Using symbols, we might transcribe the following three words phonetically like this. Here you can see that a string has 5 sounds and it and clean have 4 sounds. The other slide, please. Phonemic transcription is placed between forward slide brackets. When we transcribe phonetically, we are representing not actually sounds. The other way we can transcribe speech is using phonetic transcription, also sometimes known as narrow transcription. This involves representing additional details about the contextual variation in pronunciation that occur in normal speech. Here you can see that a string has a long vowels represented by the diacritic. Another, please. Phonemic and phonetic transcription both have their purpose. The goal of phonemic transcription is to record the phonemes as mental categories that a speaker uses rather than the actually spoken variants of those phones that are produced in the context of particular word. Phonemic transcription, on the other hand, specific the finer details how sounds are actually made. And difference between phonemic and phonetic transcription: phonemes are what we hear, phonetic is what we say. Phonemic and phonetic transcription are created with different purposes in mind. And finally, another please. There are phonemes and allophones are terms for speech sounds depending on how they function in given language. Specifically, the term phone is used when a speech sound is considered as separate from language. Allophones are phonetic variations of a phone that do not change the spoken word meaning. And phonemes are that speech sound and that several to contrast meaning
Okay,
in
good
words.
afternoon, teacher. My name is Diana Valencia. Today I am going to talk about what is morphology and morphological analysis. What is morphology? Morphology studies the form of words, the different significant elements that compose them, and the grammatical role played by each of these segments within the word. There is morphology is the study of the structure and formation of words. Its most important unit is the morpheme, which is defined as the minimal unit of meaning. Linguistic textbooks usually define it slightly differently as the minimal unit of grammatical analysis. The next slide, please. Example, consider a word like unhappiness. This has 3 parts. There is 3 morphemes, each currently a certain amount of the meaning. Un means not, while ness means being in the state or condition. Happy is a free morpheme because it can appear its own, as a word is its own right. Both morphemes have to be attached to a free morpheme, and so can be words in their own right. Thus, you can have sentences in English such as, Jason feels very nice today. Another slide, please. What is morphological analysis? It consists of determining the form, class of grammatical category of each word in a sentence. This section has 3 parts. In the first part, some basic terms in morphology is introduced, in particular, morpheme, affix, prefix, suffix, both free forms. The second review conventional ways of grouping language, such as isolating, agglutinated, and inflecting. The morpheme is the minimal unit of a word capable of expressing a grammatical meaning. Affixes are particles that attach to a word or the root of the word, and the front the right words, changing the meaning of the words to which they attach. Prefixes are those grammatical elements that are placed before a word and modify its meaning. Finally, suffix is used in grammar to name the affix that is added in the end of a word. My partner continues with the explanation.
Good afternoon, teacher. My name is Evelyn Moncayo, and I am going to talk about the classification of morphological structural types. Okay. English is from a morphological point of view a fairly simple language. Linguistics of early generation were quite interested in producing family tree of languages to show which modern languages descend from which early one and peers even being able to reconstruct lost languages. Morphological structure is just one group in languages. There are usually three classes in this classification. The first one is isolating languages. The words in an isolating language are invariable. To put it another way, it's composed of three phonemes and so there are no more phonemes. To indicate information like grammatical number is plural, or tense past, present, and future. Mandarin Chinese is often quoted as an example of such a language, also claimed Vietnamese to be a better example. The transliterate sentence. And here we have an example. Depending on the context, it can mean any of the four following sentences. And you can see four examples. The second one is agglutinative languages. Textbook examples are usually based of which will be used for need. In our example, we will use the following morphemes. And here we have another example. To complete our example, we need a Turkish noun, in this case if, which means house. From this noun we can make the following words, and here we have the examples. The important thing about this example is to notice how the morphemes all represent a unit or meaning, and how they remain absolutely identifiable within the structure of the words. This is in contrast to what happened in the last class, the inflected languages. And finally, here we have inflecting languages. The words in inflecting languages do show different forms, and it is possible to break the words into smaller units and label them. In the same way, the way Turkey's example was presented above. However, the result is a very modern and contradictory account. Usually, examples are based on Latin and really on an knowledge of the Latin grammatical case example, which most English undergrads don't have. As a simple example, the Latin for I love is amo. This is mean that the ending is used to express the meanings. First person, I or we, singular, present tense, and also other meanings. There are 2 points worth making. The first is that languages vary greatly, and generalization based on the experience of only one language, such as English, are likely to be easily countered example from other languages. The second is that language is a nature occurring phenomenon, and tools we use to study it, such as classification and technical terms, are only tools, which may be imperfect attempts to describe something too complex for our current science.
Dr. Teacher, my name is Alexandra Munoz. The topic is morphological word and morphemes. What is the morphological? Studying in the structure of words to define and clarify their units, also responsible for clarify words in the category. For example, in nouns, adjectives, verbs, and variance formation. What is the morphemes? are a combination of letters that imply a meaning and are joined to four words. They form an intervening point between letters which have no meaning and words which they do morphological analysis. It is consists of determining what kind of word or grammatical category each word as a sentence form. It is important not confuse it with syntax analysis, where once is analyzed in the confusion of word in a sentence. The pronunciation, the V is the B, the C is K.
Hello teacher, my name is Kevin Campbell. I am going to talk about the syllable simple and complex. Okay, syllable analysis. The symbol is a basic unit of the speech that is studied on both the phonemic and the phonological levels on the analysis. Okay, syllable analysis divided in two. The structure of the English syllables. The first is the basic configuration of the English syllables is the C versus C, the part of the syllables preceding the nucleus and the call on the ones. The element that comes after the nucleus is called the coda of the syllable. Another part, the signifying of the syllable, is the first of all is greatly influences the rhyming of the language. It is phonemic meter and street feather. Okay, another idea is it is useful as the largest unit we need to consider it in explaining how phonemes are they permitted to combine together in a language. Okay, and in symbol analysis, we have a monosyllable. What is the monosyllable? Monosyllables are words that have only one syllable. For example, a pen, man, pig, and cat. Another, we have the syllable. What is the syllable? The syllable are the words that have two syllables. Okay, in this part we have some example. For example, a garden divided in two parts. For example, gar and them. Another word is hotel dividing in two parts, ho and tell. Finally, and focus divided in two parts, for and kings. Another, we have trisyllable. Trisyllable are the words that have three syllables. For example, September divided in three parts, sep, tem, and burned. And another, we have a polysyllable. Polysyllable are the words that have more three syllables. In this part, we can see the kindergarten. Kindergarten divided in four parts. For example, king, and darn, guard, and thing. Okay, finally, we have an example. I suppose that the letter A is a word. This word dividing onset and the remi. The remi divide in nucleus and coda. For example, in onset we have letter C and is. And in nucleus have is represented or have A and I. Finally, we have a coda. A coda is represented, or we have a T, an N, and G. That is all. Thank you for your attention, teacher.